That's the way.
That is the way. This is the way.
This is the way. Are they still doing that show?
They're making a movie actually called The Mandalorian and Grogu. So, sort of.
You want to say hello?
Hello. Hello, everybody.
No, like do the intro.
Hello, internet people. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Welcome to the Sanctum Sanctorum podcast. This is one of your hosts, Chris.
This is the other host, Joey. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, boys and girls.
Can you believe it's 2025?
I didn't think that was going to be a real year.
Yeah, right?
Either Jesus was coming back or I was going to die.
Now, I know we're not covering this movie today, but is this the year for 5 years later in Endgame, or was that 2023?
That's 23.
That's 23. Oh, so we're 2 years past there.
We've survived.
We made it through. We made it 2 years after the blip.
We did. But welcome to Sanctum Sanctorum, where comics and Christ culture collide. Chris, do you have any plans for 2025 that you know right now, like, I'm going to get this done, other than you're going to read like 30,000 books?
Well, I did reach my goal of 104.
Well done.
I did that for 2024. Plans that I know I'm going to get done right now. Do more episodes of this.
There you go.
That's probably the only thing written in stone right now.
I almost don't want to say it, but I'd love to do a live event at some point in the year.
That would be fun.
Get all the community together, make it virtual as well, just all the nerds in one place. You can't go wrong.
That would be well. It could go very wrong, but
go wrong.
That's part of the appeal of it. I like that idea.
Much like our movie that we're covering today, a lot of things could go wrong. But before we dive into said movie, I've got a comic culture moment question that centers around the film that we're covering today. I'd love your thoughts on it because your thoughts are very unique compared to mine when it comes to this stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's this idea of this crossover event when it comes to comic book storytelling. You know, we have these massive crossover events like Secret Wars, Infinity War, Crisis on Infinite Earth. Are these types of events that bring all these characters and all these storylines to sort of one moment, are they beneficial for the narrative? Are they confusing? Do they alienate the common viewer? Is it beneficial? What is the purpose of doing all of this?
Well, I mean, the purpose, I think, of doing it is, again, to kind of have a culmination of these, when you're just telling one character's story, you just have to reach their end, however many, issues or movies or whatever, you got to reach that character's end. But when you have characters spread over different shows or over different films, and the idea is to culminate together, like, it can be very tricky. I mean, I think that's what you want to do, is be able to conclude all the stories at once, but it can be tricky to do that because you have to be able to make the individual stories interesting enough while still leading up to, this big major event. But your other question is, does it alienate? I think it can. And I think that it can be very easy to do that. I know that in comics, it can be very easy to do that because it could be time-consuming and expensive to read everything. And if you're like me, I like to know all of the story from all the characters going into the major event. And that can become, impossible to do to some degree. We saw this with you saw this with the Arrowverse when that was on the CW. They had a great 5-part story of where they did their version of Crisis on Infinite Earths. But the problem was that part one was on Arrow, part two was on The Flash, part three was on Supergirl, part four was on Batwoman, part five was in Legends of Tomorrow.
Which is genius.
It is genius, but if you're like some of the people that I have talked to about it in the past, like, oh, well, I only watch, Arrow and The Flash, so I was really confused why it started here and ended here. Like, I never watched that show.
Yeah.
Not everyone is like me, where I'm like, well, I'm watching all of them because I know there's going to be lots of convergence. Even if I don't like all of them, I'm still watching all of them.
Hmm.
So I think that it can be alienating. It's easier with movies because it's less of a time commitment, 2 hours, 3 hours, and it's done. But I think that your casual viewer could walk into something like Infinity War or really any of the Avenger movies you could walk into and it's like, well, who is that character? What are they referencing here? Like, oh, I didn't watch the first Captain America movie. I didn't watch, Iron Man 1 and 2, so I don't know who any of these people are, and they're acting like I need to know.
Right.
You know,
I think, to that point, does it alienate? Yes, it does. And I think that's okay. Because this is going to be a terrible analogy, but I'm going to own it and I'm going to walk through it anyway.
all right. I believe in you.
There are Catholic members of the faith that do not eat fish on Fridays. And that's just what it is. They don't apologize for it. It's part of being Catholic. There
Okay.
are Muslim and Hindu and even Jewish members of faith practicing communities that do not engage in consumption of pork. It's just what they do. It's part of the thing. And I feel like comics are just part of the thing. The crossover events, like, that's for the geeks. But somewhere in this industry building mentality, we lost the fact that this was for fans. And I think we start asking the question of like, oh, does it alienate people? Does it like we bring in the inclusion thing? First of all, geek culture is not exclusive.
No,
We
not at
welcome
all.
everybody. We're all cool with it. But when you start asking the question of like, well, does it alienate people? Do you have to have all of it? Well, yeah. And the people who want all of it are watching all of it. So it's not really a problem. If you want to join, there's a couple things that you got to watch. And that's just part of it. And now some people go, well, I'm not watching 20 Batmans just to understand what's going on in the Superman movie. All right, cool. I will.
Right. But then you can't complain when you don't understand something.
That's the thing. And I don't think anybody's really complaining. Like, I don't know anybody who's walked into Infinity War without having watched, phases 1 through 3. But I think this question is a little ridiculous when we're like, well, does it exclude people? And I know I'm the one who asked the question, but it's like, yeah, but if you're part of the crew, part of the ship, part of the crew, you're going to get it. So yeah, let's do it because it's fun.
So, yeah, so I mean, you could say that with the Arrowverse as well. Like, will you question, if you didn't watch Batwoman, but you watched all the other shows, will you maybe have some questions? Yeah, but then, you can either go back and watch all that, you can ask somebody who knows, or you could just move on and be like, I'm just going to accept that. I don't understand what that means, but I like
Right.
seeing everybody else all together. So that's fine too.
And I think the thing about the world building is that no, these characters are not in silos. They live in each other's sandboxes, and that's part of putting these crossover events together. It's like, yeah, Flash and Superman and Arrow all get to be in the same space. You want to see that.
Well, now again, you want to see that as a geek, but I think from just maybe not even from a storytelling perspective, but from a movie, from a like a filmmaker perspective, or from them needing to make money, I
Yeah.
think that it can be, you're telling a story presuming that the mass public is watching this. You know what I mean? Like, you're releasing a blockbuster movie. Now, is it based on stuff that geeks love? Of course, but you're like, I want to lead up to this massive story, and I want to tell this, culmination of all these different characters, but you can't necessarily just assume that everyone has watched everything.
Right.
I mean, you can, but then you're going to run into people criticizing your movie because they don't know the history. Now, I ran into this recently watching the new Hellboy movie, The Crooked Man. Now, the way that Hellboy works is there is an origin story to Hellboy, but a lot of his stories are mini arcs, and they're just like what do you call it? Like they're episodic.
Yep.
So here's just an adventure. It doesn't retell the backstory. The first three movies did. This movie is assuming you know who Hellboy is, you know what he works for, you know what he does, and it just kind of jumps into like, here's this mini adventure. And it didn't do well because people were alienated by that. It was like, well, this is different. This is a different actor than the last ones they did, and so that means they need to retell the story again. So I know who he is, what the motivations are. Whereas somebody who's already a fan of Hellboy, I know all that stuff, so I can go in and enjoy this as like, oh, well, I know all the backstory, so I can just enjoy this. But the mass public is not gonna.
My ADHD brain just did this really quickly. Like, okay, well, you're gonna what we're trying to do is not be criticized for not understanding it. Right? Like, you understand the episodic nature of Hellboy, not everybody does.
Right.
So we have to make sure that morons don't rate this poorly based on their uneducated selves. Okay,
Right.
well then how do we do that? Well, we have to make sure that everybody understands things, and that means then we have to dumb things down. And the active fans will not appreciate it because now it's like, yeah, but you missed out on the whole catalog of the beauty of the character. Okay, well then why are we doing that? Why do we need the good ratings? So that we make another one. So that we what? It's all about money. And that's
Right.
sad.
And I get that, and that sucks. But like, I was even talking to a friend of mine about it, and one of the complaints that he heard was, Hellboy's not big enough. He's not like buff enough and size big enough. And it's like, well, he's not supposed to be. This is 1959. He's kind of a teenager in during this story, so
Yeah.
he's not a grown adult, physically and mentally yet. So this is like an immature story for Hellboy. It's supposed to, again, if you knew what you were talking about, it's supposed to be this way.
And this is where I think geeks are justified. A lot of feedback and commentary around geek culture is like, oh, you nerds are so defensive of your characters and you care way too much about blah blah blah. Yeah, it means something, and these characters have been there for us, and they
Mhm.
represent growth areas in our lives and opportunities and all of that. And when you just poop on it because you didn't understand it or it wasn't for you, it's like, well, does art have to connect to everyone or can it just be for some people?
Oh, I think it absolutely. We've talked about that before of like separating the art and the artist. Like
Yeah.
the art can be we talked about Kevin Smith before. Kevin Smith makes movies for Kevin Smith fans
Yeah.
most of the time. Now they some have been critically received well, some not so much, but they're for certain people. Realistically, that's really for who they are. So
Totally.
now I think with comic book movies, they want there to be mass consumption of them, but I don't know that it's always going to be practical. Everybody's going to go see the Avengers. Everybody's going to go see a Batman or a Superman movie. But now you have James Gunn starting off his DC universe with Creature Commandos. I don't know that everybody's going to watch that. That's a very, specific corner of the DC universe with some of those characters. And even if I were to tell everybody like, "Oh, this show is amazing. You should watch it." Everybody would love it if they watched it. It's like, I don't know who any of these people like. This doesn't have Wonder Woman in it. I don't know. This doesn't have Harley Quinn in it. I don't need it. That was the concern with the Suicide Squad too. Like other than two or three of the characters, there were a lot of unknowns. So
But sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, right? Like Suicide Squad, maybe not so much. It's these new characters which we sort of like, but Guardians of the Galaxy just showed, no, you don't need to know anything about them and we'll still love them. So the
That's
rules
true.
don't really apply.
That's true. So again, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think that even though Guardians was successful, you took a risk
Yeah,
doing that right on the heels of like, okay, these are characters that a lot of people have been familiar with. We've seen movies and shows of them in the past. Like, here are characters that unless you know, you have no idea who they are. And it worked out. But
and I think all of that to sum it up, like make art for the fans that love it. And if everybody else likes it, that's cool. I get there's a financial component here. I'm glad I don't have to make that call.
yeah,
But yeah, keep making the crossover events. Keep crossing storylines and narratives because fans deeply appreciate that.
reward the people that have put in the time. Don't
That's it.
don't always appeal, but like somebody like me, I've watched all these shows, all the seasons. I deserve the payoff.
Yeah.
You know.
But what do you guys think? Throw a
Yes.
DM, throw a comment, or throw a snide remark on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram.
Just don't judge me personally. I mean, you can. It's fine.
You can judge me. Yeah. We
I
don't
don't care
care.
that much.
Speaking of not caring, today we are diving into quite the film.
Quite the film. Today is the 10-year culmination
Whew.
of the MCU. Well, the first 10 years anyway, because since it kept going. But we are doing Avengers Infinity War.
Did it keep going?
Well, they kept doing it.
We could argue something.
Did it
but
keep
we won't.
going? Maybe not. Did they keep doing it? Well, yes, they did it. They
Very
did
different
more.
things. Yes. We're covering Infinity War, and I'm happy with my plot synopsis. Are you prepared for this?
I am. I am so beyond ready for this plot synopsis.
All right, homie. Cue the foreboding music. Here we go. The universe's most ambitious crossover kicks off with Thanos, a big purple raisin of a villain with a chin resembling a chewed-up Nerf ball, deciding that hoarding colorful space pebbles is the ultimate solution to overpopulation. His genius plan? Commit universal genocide with the snap of his fingers after collecting rainbow Skittles. Because obviously sitting down with a licensed therapist would be too much work. Which we'd like to take a moment on the podcast to talk to you about BetterHelp Therapy, available in every universe where problems are sold. Meanwhile, the Avengers are scattered like action figures in a divorce settlement, forced to reunite in the ultimate group project where no one wants to do the PowerPoint. The Guardians of the Galaxy, on the other hand, are out playing an intergalactic version of Pokemon Go, 5 steps behind Thanos and blissfully unaware that they are way out of their league. All the while, Vision, the world's saddest USB drive, is counting down to his inevitable demise, while everyone debates whether or not to unplug him. Will the good guys win like every Marvel movie? Or will Thanos complete his intergalactic scavenger hunt, snap his fingers, and turn half the universe into cosmic geek glitter? Will the Roomba of Doom get its day? Spoiler, yes. Prepare yourself for a gut punch of a movie that somehow makes you care and maybe even cry about CGI raccoons and wizard capes, as Marvel reminds us that no, teamwork doesn't always make the dream work in 2018's Avengers Infinity War. Dun, dun, dun.
I don't even know what to do with that. That was
Just
both,
receive.
That was both. I'm gonna receive that. I'm gonna receive that word, and I'm gonna meditate on it and get back to you maybe in a future episode about how it really felt.
See what God is saying in all of that.
I mean, if I lean on what God is saying about it immediately with my immediate reaction, no one's going to want to
It's not
receive
good.
that word.
Here's the thing, man. I love this film. Love this film. This is my second favorite Marvel film.
Oh, well. What's the Winter Soldier?
Very good. I was going to say, if you don't know that, are we friends?
I mean,
Your favorite
it's-
Marvel film is Suicide Squad.
Not small. I wish it was a Marvel film. The first one. The second one is better. But this movie was directed by the Russo brothers,
Mm.
famous who famously got their start on the show Community,
And did Winter Soldier.
and also did Winter Soldier, and they've done a lot of Marvel movies since. And normally this would be where I would kind of pinpoint the starring actors and actresses,
I
but
was wondering if you were going to do it.
it stars everybody.
There's 70 names.
If they were in one of the 18 or 19 movies that they did before this, they're in this one,
They're
or they're
here.
talked about in this one, but most of them are in this one.
Yep.
So
There is so many good things in this movie. So many good things.
there are some great things in this. There are some good things. There are some great things.
I would love for you to kick it off. What did you like?
Well, one of the things I know I usually pull one of these out, but I would say that between Infinity War and its counterpart Endgame, this for me was, I think, the last time that the MCU had really great believable effects. Like there was a lot of CGI in this movie, a lot of motion capture. You know, obviously you had the Hulkbuster suit, you had, you know, Thanos's army, you had the Black Order, you had Thanos himself.
Yeah,
Rocket and Groot and Thor and all of this CGI. And for me, this was the last time it was like, man, I feel like these are real beings, and I feel like these worlds I could walk right into it and it would really exist. And I feel
totally.
like since this in DC as well as Marvel, I think just in movies in general, they've gotten to where it looks they try to make it look so real that it looks phony now.
Yeah. I
You know what
think
I
of
mean?
the new Mufasa is getting ridiculed for that exact thing. Like it looks so good it's not believable.
Yeah, that it's like it's yeah, I don't know what it is, but for me this was the last time that I looked and was like, this is
I,
beautiful.
I actually have the CGI written as a great thing, and there's one specific scene where I was like, ooh, that looks phenomenal. And that's where they're getting the gauntlet off of Thanos. When they've got those close-up shots of his face and Mantis is on his
Oh,
head.
yeah, yeah.
Flawless, absolutely stunning CGI. You can see the pores on his face. It's unreal.
And you have so much CGI going on in that too, because you have
Yeah,
Spider-Man and Iron Man there. You have Mantis, floating above him. You have Star-Lord flying. You have
yeah.
webbing holding him down. Like there's a lot of CGI, and all of it just looks great.
Like the only thing you can say for sure that's not CGI is the actor's face. Now I know somebody like Drax or Mantis that's full costume, but Spider-Man's suit is all CGI.
Mhm.
If Tony's got the helmet off, the suit is CGI, and you can't tell. You
Yeah,
just can't tell.
no, it looked that is so that even if everything else in this movie was bad, that would still be such a feat
Agreed.
accomplishment. Um, my favorite part of this movie is the train station when
Hmm.
Vision and Wanda are fighting, part of the Black Order, and she's like looking through the train. You just see the shadow, and that Avenger music comes, and he catches the spear, and it is just gives you goosebumps. It gets you excited.
If I remember correctly, they released that scene like the week of the movie's release.
Okay,
So I knew it was coming, but I actually remembered that in the theater going, yeah, I know it's coming and I know who it is, but it doesn't matter. I'm still going to lose my mind.
yeah. Oh my God, that was just terrific. And again, I think I said this on a previous episode, but what a missed opportunity to do a movie or a series on Cap, Black Widow, and Falcon on their, secret adventures. That would have been so good.
Yeah.
Um, I thought that I love we just talked about crossovers. I love when random teams come together. You see characters that wouldn't normally teaming up together, and you have a lot of that happening here. You see Winter Soldier and Rocket hanging together. Thor with Rocket and Groot, Black
Yep.
Panther with a whole bunch of people. Um, Shuri working with Vision. Just I love that. I love that stuff. The battle. Okay, so right on. So if the train station is here, right here is the Battle of Wakanda.
Particularly when Thor shows up.
Well, so that was a whole separate good thing is Thor's entrance into that battle, but
They
that
should have
that
played
whole
Immigrant
battle
Song.
itself is just. I wish there was a cut of Avengers where they didn't keep going back to the other things that were going on. You know what I mean? Like we were
Mm,
clipping to Nebula, Gamora, and Thanos. We were clipping back to Titan, where the
yeah.
Guardians and Spider-Man and Iron Man were. I want to see just Wakanda from beginning to end, just spectacular. That whole scene is terrific,
Yep.
and I mean, just about all the fight scenes. Right? Would you say that any of the fight scenes
There's
are
not
not?
one where I was like, not as good. No, every single one, everybody's at the top of their game.
Yeah, the big battles, the one-on-ones, the like small ones, everything
Hands
is
down.
just fantastic here.
Yep.
I love the wizard jokes as well, and the jokes in this are very good. I don't feel like it's too much, except with the Guardians, and that's gonna play into my bad, so I'm gonna wait
All
on
right.
that. But I do love the wizard jokes. Like, dude, you're embarrassing me in front of the wizards. There goes the wizard. He's flying over there. Go catch him. Like, I like
So,
that stuff.
so what you mean is you like Tony making jokes about Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
That's fine. That I'm okay with.
yeah, that was it because that seems very in character and is appropriate for an Avengers movie.
Totally.
But I don't want to digress into any bad yet. Maybe I
We'll
should have
we'll
saved
get
that to
there.
the end.
Yep, we'll get there.
Um, Also, I feel like this is a throwaway line, and it's probably one of my top five favorite lines in the movie. And I say it in normal life is when Thor is telling the Guardians where they need to go to get a Thanos killing weapon. He's
All
like,
words are made up.
okay, all words are made up. What a smart line.
Yep.
All words are made up. Where he's like, those are made up words. All words are made up. And it's like, I
Uh,
guess that's
yeah.
true. All
You're
words are made up.
to quote Tony Stark. Well, you're not wrong.
In all languages, all words are made up. I just thought that was such a smart joke and
Yep.
was done so carelessly, just like a throwaway line, blink and you miss it. And it was so good. So good. Um, Peter Dinklage in anything is great. And I just think that it's humorous. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be, of him being a giant dwarf. They keep talking about the dwarves who make all these, the weapons of the gods,
Right.
and he's, you know,
Huge.
and he's a giant, but he still looks like himself. He still looks like a person with dwarfism.
He's Dinklage anatomically correct,
Yes, and
but
just enormous.
stories tall. Yeah.
There's a lot of sacrifices in this movie too, which I think are worth. Some of them are worth mentioning. I think Groot
Okay.
sacrificing his arm to make Stormbreaker, I feel like that's a very moving scene because I think during the course of this movie in Guardians 2, you see him as this very sullen teenage Groot, and he just, not wanting to participate, not be helpful, and to just see him do that, and now like a part of Groot will always be a part of Thor, I think is kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah. Tangential to that, one of the things that I have along the idea of sacrifice is that I like that they lose. I like that in this movie, like right away, Hulk and Thor lose right off the bat, which is a nice nod to the fact that like we had Civil War and they weren't a part of it.
Yeah, so they
And
got
so
him.
it's like the first time that we're now brought into an Avenger movie. It's like, oh, by the way, here's these two.
And they got him. They got him. Some time to shine a little bit.
Exactly. Asgard is decimated. Heimdall is gone in seconds. Loki dies. Like, there's loss, and you feel it. And they're finally not shying away from it.
Yeah.
I love it.
But I will tell you that along sacrifices that I think are good, I thought that Loki's sacrifice was very moving. So, when he calls himself
Yeah.
Odin's son, and
Gets you right there.
it does. Okay, so it does. No, it did when I first saw it.
It doesn't have repeatability?
The sacrifice doesn't have repeatability from it. Doesn't have the same emotional resonance in
Now
repeated
knowing
viewings.
Endgame?
Because, well, you see him again in Endgame, and then he has his own series, will likely appear in future installments. Now, I know it's a different version of Loki, but it's
Sure.
still Tom Hiddleston being Loki, doing his Loki thing. So to me, that cheapens the sacrifice, because then it's like, okay, so he didn't really die,
Not
you
to
know?
me, because he still has to make that decision in the moment. Right? Like, of the
Okay.
timelines and variations and all the different versions, like, we brought him back because we love the actor in the character role. Sure. But in this version, in this timeline, and in this moment, he still decides, I'm Odin's son. I'm going to die.
I guess if I think about it more deeply, that's true. But if I just
Sure.
look at it as like, man, wasn't it so moving when this character died? Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah, the
was,
first
and then they
20
ruined
times
it.
I saw it.
But then I know he comes back. So how sad is it really? It's not like I'm never going to see this actor playing this character again. You
True.
know, I feel like that. Well, that's a for a different conversation. No, the a lot of the costuming is great, but especially for me anyway, especially Cap's Nomad uniform, where
Yep.
you could tell it is a Captain America suit, but it's dingy and dirty.
And
The
he's
stars
over
ripped
it.
off the chest. It's
Yep.
like this is my work uniform, but this is not who I am anymore, and I like that a lot.
And to that, everybody got upgraded gear. I
Yes.
like
Oh yeah.
that, his shield is now Wakandan shields. Tony's got nanotech. We've got Stormbreaker, the Iron Spider's there. Like, everybody got a bump up, and I thought that was cool.
I like most of what you said. The shields are an issue for me.
They're not great, but,
That's in my bad, so I won't go there. I got
to what you said, he's walking away from the identity, and the shield is the identity.
it.
Without the shield, he's just Nomad, right? And that's what he's trying to be.
I'm gonna wait till bad, but I have a lot more to say about the
Carry on.
shield issue. Um, Again, I thought that Thor's. Well, I have other issues with it. I think that Thor's interaction with the Guardians was funny. The jokes are good. The pirate angel, you're a dude. This is a man.
This is a
His
man.
muscles have muscles. Like, that's what that stuff is fun.
And his arc in the entire film is great. Like,
Who's
Thor, he is
Thor's? Oh yeah.
like, he is in real time processing the loss of Ragnarok, which we didn't get. And it's rare, quite honestly. Like, I think we sort of tap into it in Iron Man 3, but that's more through a post-traumatic stress lens. And Cap just sort of moves on, whereas you walk through Thor's processing in Infinity War from the events of the last 10 years.
Sort
And they
of
don't,
though.
but they don't rush through it, right? Like, the whole conversation he has with, I was about to call him Rabbit, with Rocket, that's very transparent.
It is, but I think they lean too much into making light of it as well. So like when this has just happened and Gamora says to him like, Thanos is my father, whoever says it to him, and he like does that thing where he like gets real intense from it and it's just like, oh, families can be complicated.
Yeah.
It's like that was funny, and I feel like there should have been more gravitas to the idea of like Thor took everyone from. Thanos took everyone I cared about and half of my people, and now I see his daughter, and it's
I'll agree with that. However, it's not Thor that ruins that moment. It's Star-Lord. That moment, if Chris Pratt doesn't show up, then yeah, it's just sort of a little awkward, but at least you're still in the moment. The whole, well, my dad killed my mom and I had to kill my dad, and like the whole now competition aspect of it, that's what brought the humor into that moment.
Yeah,
I'm going to defend this movie.
I think it was too much of Ragnarok Thor and not enough of original and Dark World and original Avengers Thor.
Yeah. No, we definitely made a
little
deviation.
too lighthearted Thor for at least some of it.
If I remember correctly, isn't this post the Ghostbusters movie that Hemsworth did?
Yes.
So he got heralded as a comedic actor in that role.
And he was and is.
And Ragnarok then comes around and he's also funny. And I think Russo's just said, go be funny, go be you. Because we're not going to do the Kenneth Branagh version of Thor.
But then,
and Dark World was a mess.
But why that didn't work for me is that when he finally arrives in Wakanda, he is all business.
He's on, right.
You know, when he finally gets the axe in Thanos' chest and he has this moment where he's like enjoying almost taking Thanos' life. That's the Thor I wanted the whole time. It was like, everything's okay, even though everybody just died and the rest of my family is gone and all this stuff. But like, now we're done. Now it's time for business. I think he should have been all business.
Yeah,
the whole time.
It's a little tonally inconsistent.
It is, and that bothered me a little bit.
All right.
I love that. I have only three more things, and we can get through them quickly. I actually thought it was somewhat odd, but oddly moving that Thanos truly cares for Gamora enough that sacrificing her meant something. That you have to sacrifice something you truly love. It's easy to think the only thing he truly loves is himself. But he had enough feeling for Gamora for that to be enough of a sacrifice to get the Soul Stone. And I thought that there was something like darkly moving in that. Yeah, but Wanda is the most interesting character in the MCU. But before and after Infinity War, I think that after Infinity War and Endgame, they did a lot more with her, obviously.
Totally.
But I think that they should have done a lot more with her before the emotional toll of the culmination movies,
Yeah.
The last thing is an acting thing. The fact that Tom Holland improvised his dusting scene with Robert Downey was just, it shows like how in touch they were with their characters.
Yeah.
Knowing that, Spider-Man and Iron Man have this very special relationship. And, I think that was done. That was probably the most moving moment in the movie for me. Like, the spider tingle is making him realize that something's wrong. He's seeing what's happening to everyone else on the planet there. So he kind of knows it's coming. And yeah, that was a very moving moment.
I remember crying in the theater with that one.
Absolutely, I did.
And I don't know, from an editing perspective, I was rewatching it and just going, there's silence right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not just in the theater when I was watching it, listening in my headphones. There's no noise.
No, there's no
nothing.
Score. There's no sound effects.
It's other than the silent. It's flawless. It's absolutely flawless.
It is a beautifully done scene.
I like your list. I have a few to add to it.
Hit me.
I like that this movie is not for the new fan. Like we said, this is the culmination of 10 years of storytelling. I thought they did a great job with that.
Yeah, it's the payoff. It's the reward for sticking with it.
Yeah. I like how, if I don't want to go on record saying this, but it's the first one I recall. This seems to me to be the first opening Marvel crawl without the theme song.
Oh yeah, you might be right.
There's no Marvel Cinematic Universe tune. It's the foreboding music, and fun fact, Kenneth Branagh is doing the voiceover of the Asgardian distress signal,
Oh,
where he's
really?
saying, "We're under attack. We're under attack. We need help. We're a merchant vessel." That's Kenneth Branagh.
Oh, that's a nice little nod
Nice little,
to
yeah. They got him
thank
in
you
there.
for introducing all these characters.
Thank you for your service. I like the Hulk Banner conflict. That is not what I expected. You don't like it?
I hate it. I think it's stupid. I think it's so stupid.
You might be able to change my mind.
Again, they didn't treat it seriously.
No, it was a joke, but I liked it.
That's why I didn't care for it. There wasn't this inner turmoil. Like part of Hulk would come out, he's like, "Oh, you're such a yes. What do you mean no?" Like that. I understand why they did it, but I thought they treated it too jokey, and it didn't work for me.
Fair enough. Um, the Cap and Black Panther running scene ahead of everybody else to show that they are so far more advanced was awesome. It's like, yeah, everybody's running at full speed. These two are miles ahead.
Oh
But
yeah,
it was cool, like, like when Cap laps Sam in Winter Soldier, it's like, well, that's because he's super serum enhanced.
hmm
And in the same way, it's like super serum, but it's the Wakandan herb, and they're both keeping up with each other. I thought that was a nice compliment. And what probably would have happened, I think I heard rumors of this, pending Chadwick Boseman's untimely death, they would have handed off not the shield, but just leadership of the Avengers to Black Panther.
yeah. I think that was definitely the plan.
And I think this was a nice little nod in that direction that these two were equals.
hmm Yeah, absolutely.
They shifted gears obviously with real life events, but I thought that was really well done.
And just to go alongside that, and I know we're not doing this movie, but for me it's hard to separate them. But I also love in the final battle in Endgame when you also see M'Baku keeping pace. He's
Yeah.
got no super enhancements, and he's
Nope.
keeping pace with them in that final battle, which just shows the like strength of that character and the will
The
and the need for vengeance and stuff, which I also thought was really cool.
the veracity of it, yeah. Um there was a moment in the theater, and there's a moment every time I watch it, and it's the Reality Stone scene where the Guardians
On nowhere.
on Nowhere, where they interact with Thanos, and
Yeah.
Benicio del Toro's Collector character is there. It happened in the theater, and it happened with me watching it again, where I just goes, "Oh, we can't win." Where I just realized, "Oh, we're not going to win this." He's literally all powerful, and it wasn't a depressive emotion, but it was just sort of like it sank in, because for the first time in 10 years of Marvel storytelling, I sort of knew at the end, which is why I put it in the plot synopsis. I sort of know at the end that the good guys are going to win. And in this one it was like, no, we actually don't have a chance here. And I like that emotion continues to show up as I watch this, even knowing what's going to happen. It's like, actually, you guys are completely outmanned, outgunned, and outplanned. Yeah, totally. I like, and I didn't catch it until this last watching of it, but I like how Vision stabs Corvus Glaive at the end, because it's the same way he gets stabbed in the beginning. And I thought that was a cool payoff. Like, all right, this is where we first get introduced. You get that blade through your chest, through the back, and that's how he kills Corvus. I was like, that's a cool payoff.
Yeah, I like that.
This is gonna set you up for your bads.
So do you want to save that for last?
But it's part of my good.
Right, but do you want to save it for the last good thing you say?
Yeah. I mean, it is my last good thing.
Oh, all right.
But
Well,
I
then
tell you
go
what.
for it. Well, go for
Tell
it
you
because we
what.
have an ad break anyway.
Why don't we do the ad first?
Well, you just changing everything.
Everything needs to get changed. It's a new year, Chris.
All right. Well, listen, if you want to do the ad right before you give your final good, that is your prerogative, and I will humbly oblige.
It's a cliffhanger. But we're going to hear from our sponsor of today's episode. We'll be back in a flash. A snap.
Oh, you'll be back in a snap. It'll only be a blip of time.
Nice.
You know, the reality is that we have a lot more space, but the same amount of time and power to keep things clean. When your loved ones have turned to dust with the snap of a finger, it can be a real burden on your mind and soul. But what about all the new dust everywhere? Well, not to worry, because here at Mad Titan Appliances, we're ready to help. With our patented Dustbuster 3000, the pile of ash left by your friend, family member, or even your favorite hero need not leave a mess in your life. Watch as the infinite suction power leaves no trace of the person that once stood there, leaving a clean, fresh area for you to start anew. The best revenge is cleanliness with Mad Titan Appliances. All sales are final, and Mad Titan Appliances are not responsible for sudden return of half of the population and destruction of Dustbuster 3000.
You got every stone in there.
I did.
Look at you.
I did. Marissa didn't catch that when I read it to her last night.
I'm going to give you 11 out of 10. That was great.
So nice.
Not responsible when they all show back up. That was good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Like we said before the break, I've got one final good thing, which will go into the bad, and I'm going to throw it out there. So technically we're on bad. Hop in whenever you're ready. I know a lot of people give Star-Lord a hard time about being the reason that Thanos won, but I am here to defend him. And I would love, I said this to Chris this past week, that I have an airtight defense of Star-Lord's actions. I would love to hear why you hate him.
You want to hear the issues first, and then you'll share your defense?
Go for it. Or we could fight about this. This could be our Infinity War.
This is going to be an Infinity War, a Civil War, a BVS. It's going to be all of them. So Quill is not only Star-Lord, Quill, Peter Quill, whatever you want to call him, is not only a problem.
Mr. Lord.
Mr. Lord. I feel like he's a problem the whole movie. I feel like the Guardians don't blend into this the way that all the other heroes do.
I agree.
They create a weird dynamic as one unit blending into this world. So I don't think that they necessarily belonged in here anyway.
Agreed.
But I think that Star-Lord's competition with Thor is silly. Like he's literally a god. You're not going to compare. You gave up half your celestial self. So it's not going to compare. He and Gamora make an agreement that if Thanos gets a hold of me, I need you to kill me. I need you to not hesitate. And he does. And he agrees. But then when they go to nowhere and Thanos has a hold of her, how long is he standing there pointing his blaster at her? You just saw reality change around you. So you know that he has the reality stone. Shooting her now is not going to do anything. Maybe it would have if you did it immediately, but you spent so long going, just go left. I told you to go left. Don't make me do this? Even Thanos is getting tired of it, where it's like, she's asked, let me move her closer. Like, this is the fate of the universe. You know what's at stake. You've encountered Thanos before. You have a relationship with both of his children who have told you what kind of person he is. You're an idiot. Now, do you want to defend that, or should I talk about what happens on Titan as well, and you'll cover the whole thing?
It's all connected. Keep going.
Okay. So then again, on Titan, they make this great plan where everybody is holding Thanos steady. Mantis drops down. She does her whatever you call it, her empath thing, and, his eyes glaze over, and Star-Lord decides, rather than helping Iron Man and Spider-Man get the glove off, or helping hold him in place, or even causing damage, like like firing at him to keep him weak or something, he decides that now's a time to taunt him. And then when you find out that there's a possibility that he sacrificed Gamora, you decide now is the time to haul off and punch him in the face and get all emotional, break the concentration that Mantis is already struggling to keep, and he's able to wake up and get the glove. 2 more seconds, and Spider-Man would have. Spider-Man had the glove off. He would have had it far enough away that they could have gotten away with it. And this was his fault, and there are no consequences for it. Like, there's never a moment in Infinity War or in Endgame where somebody says, "Listen, I know things are okay now, but we wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for your stupidity."
You
So
done?
let's hear your defense,
Okay.
and we'll see what that does.
All right. Star-Lord is the character that is consistent in not sticking to the plan. In every Guardians, in every version of him on screen, he goes with his gut. He is emotionally driven. And if you look at what's happened in his life, he is emotionally stunted at age 8 from whence he was taken from Earth. He is not an adult. He is a child. And he is the embodiment of impulsivity. Now, think of that for just a second. Let's go to something else. How many versions did Doctor Strange see?
4 billion and something.
How dare you get it wrong? 14,605,000.
Whatever.
Call yourself a fan. 14,605,000. How many of them did they win?
1.
So they need everything that happens in Infinity War to happen exactly the way it happens. If it doesn't, they don't win. And we can say that so laissez-faire about Tony and sacrificing himself in Endgame, like, oh my God, that was so emotional and so rewarding and blah, blah, blah. But Star-Lord gets crapped on. He's part of this. Without it, we don't win. Period. The end. Give the guy a break. He's 8 years old, but his 8-year-old self is part of this plan in every way it works out. Come at me, son.
I see what you're saying.
That's all I'm asking.
And I understand what you're saying, but I mean that is a really good point. Yeah, I guess that's a really good point. It's not going to change my mind thinking that
He's stupid.
If ever there was a time to stick to the plan, Doctor Strange is the only one who knows that this is supposed to happen.
True.
So if ever there was a time for him to stick to the plan, because he doesn't know that he needs to screw it up in order for it to succeed later, this was the time for him to not act impulsively. Why are
we asking an 8-year-old to act like an adult?
No, not even no. Well, yes, but why is now the time to interrogate Thanos? Why is he asking him now, where is Gamora? Why is he asking him now, what did you do with her?
Because he embodies impulsivity.
But he's under this influence. You weren't going to get the information you needed.
Sure, but he's cocky.
Under Mantis's,
right? Like he's the one that throws the bird up. He's the one that's like smack talking the entire time. He thinks he's tough, but he's actually not. He's incredibly insecure. He's just come to the realization that the only person that he loves in this world is now gone, and here's the person responsible. Don't you think that you would stick to the plan? I don't think so. He's embodying humanity.
Maybe in
that
the moment,
sometimes
I'd
in
like to think that I would wait until he was weaker and I could really have my revenge, but
maybe, but I think the embodiment of the human element of who he is. He's not flawless. He's not polished. He's raw and rough and doesn't do it right. And yet that's a part of the plan. Which, not that we're on spiritual content, but I'm just thinking about it now. Like, isn't that how God works with us? Like, that's a part of the plan. Get off my dude Star-Lord's back.
All right, I can see what you were. I will concede that that is an excellent defense.
Thank you. Would you like me to continue?
Yeah, go ahead. It's not going to change how I feel about Star-Lord in this movie, but
that's fine.
That's a decent defense, I have to say.
Here's the other thing. I was surprised about how much issue I have with this film, even though I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love this film. It's, like I said, my second favorite Marvel movie, and yet there's a lot of problems with it. For example, the concept of a stone is confusing, and they recognize that in Endgame, but it's like, well, what are the properties? Right? Every other interaction they have with an Infinity Stone, it's got a definitive role and trait and things that it can do. Whereas with this one, it's just sort of like, you know, we need them to do whatever we need them to do. I'll give you a good example. The Tesseract is what?
Space.
Okay, so how come when Loki tries to stab him, he stops him with blue energy? Like, that's not space. That's not teleportation. It's like, if you're going to do it, do it. Otherwise, it's just, well, the stones can do whatever we need them to do. And oh, by the way, we're going to snap everybody out of existence. Pick a lane.
The stones are kind of like the MacGuffin. They're, you know.
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly what they are.
They serve whatever purpose that needs to be served in that moment.
There's the main issue, right? Like, wiping out half of the resources, just add double the resources.
That is my major.
However, I figured out why, and I'm going to give my brother-in-law John a shout out here because he pointed it out over Christmas. He said, "Isn't there a Lady Death in the comic?"
Yes. The comic story is so much better.
Well, not only is it the comic story so much better, the comic story only works if you have Lady Death.
Yeah.
He's trying to provide bodies and souls for her.
Yes, he's trying to win her over by eliminating half the universe and giving her so much death to feed off of.
Without that element, you simply have a humanitarian who does not understand how to play with space skittles.
But then what they should have done was introduce death.
Yeah.
Because you know what? That's right, but that's not an excuse, because at the end of the first Avenger movie, they once the servant or whatever he is says to Thanos, like, to
court death,
to face the Avengers is to court death, and that's what makes Thanos like go, oh yes, yeah, I want to do that.
Right. It's the wink and a nod, but it's like, well, then you should have put it in there.
Then you should have, because now they introduced death with Aubrey Plaza in what do you call it, Agatha All Along. So you should have just done that earlier. That should have been the reason.
There's plenty of nitpicking I can do, but I really don't want to. Like, you could complain that why is nobody ever worried about oxygen, and yet the lack of oxygen is how Ebony Maw dies. I don't want to do that. Why does Cap say, "Where are we going, Cap?" And he goes, "Home." And they go to the Avengers compound. You haven't been there in 2 years? Why? Seeing Rhodey after watching Secret Invasion makes this so unsatisfying, knowing that he's a Skrull. But I want to go through the major issue that I have with this film. And that is Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is a massive problem with this movie. First of all, his entire role is the joke setter-upper. That's it. That's all he does. he sets up sometimes flat jokes.
Shout
For
out
example,
to Ben and Jerry's.
no. I mean, that one wasn't bad.
Eh.
I'm going to ask you this one time, what master do you serve? You set that joke up like it was your job, and it was so flat. And quite honestly, without an audience laughing around you, it's painfully cringe. Like, it's awkward.
Why did his cadence of speech change when he became master of the mystic arts? Because like when Tony first shows up to the sanctum, he says, there will be consequences hitherto unheard of. What
Yep.
master do you serve? Why are you saying it like that? Wouldn't it be easier to say, are you with Thanos or are you fighting him? Wouldn't that have been so much easier?
Well, here's the other thing. You're the protector of the cosmos, but you don't know who Thanos is? What? You're the Sorcerer Supreme? Are you kidding me? And the other thing is he doesn't use the stone at all. That actually hurts the plot of the film because without using it, now it's just a game of keep away until the final act when he's like, it's part of the plan. Here you go. I was waiting for some really cool reverse stuff. And do you know where the time stone actually comes in?
When Thanos uses it.
Yeah, sort of. And that sort of surprised me. But like the concept of messing with time comes in the next movie and they don't even use the stone. So like all of the other stones had a moment, right? Like the Mind Stone got used because we had to keep Vision away. The Power Stone got used. The Space Stone, he shows up in different spaces. The reality thing with the Guardians. And then it's like the Time Stone got nothing.
Yeah.
So all of it then just comes back to this character that they didn't know what to do with. They had to throw him in there. And so now he just becomes the butt of half the jokes. I didn't like it.
Yeah. No, I see that. I have no defense for it. I don't know that it stood out to me as so bad, but I hate the way that it changes. His change of speech is silly.
I've got one final thing, which is that the whole trading lives thing is just so hypocritical. Right? Like Wanda has to do it, but we don't. And I'm sorry, but he's not a member of the team. He's a robot.
Yeah, I guess he was never really an Avenger.
Like they said, he's a complex being of Vision and Banner and Ultron and Tony and the Stone, and we can't remove that? I know Shuri's trying to do it, but they didn't even re-attempt to do it after she got interrupted. It's like, we can't trade lives. We don't do that. Wanda, you have to make this decision.
I don't understand why they couldn't just remove the stone and restart Vision.
Right, and I thought like he was the Soul Stone. That's what brought him to life. But it's his mind, but you're also saying that he's got 3 other minds in him. Jarvis, Tony, and
also if it's the Mind Stone that brought him to life, why does he feel emotion? The Soul Stone would have made a lot more sense.
That goes back to the MacGuffin of stones do what we need them to do in the moment.
Yep.
And I don't like that Thor didn't keep his eye patch. I thought he looked great.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. I think it would have looked a lot cooler. I wouldn't even have minded if he got his eye back in Endgame. But I think for this movie, at least, he should have kept the one eye. I think it looked cool.
1, because he looked cool. 2, because now he looks like Odin.
That is also true.
Daddy issues. What else bad do you have?
This kind of connects to what our comic culture thing was, but this is definitely not a standalone movie. Like, you can't go into this without having seen anything else and understand anything that's happening with any of the characters. I thought that the scene with young Gamora was not necessary.
No.
I hate it. Aliens is also the wrong reference. It's Alien, not Aliens. When he sucks Ebony Maw out of the hole in the ship, that's what Ripley does in the first Alien movie, not the second one.
That blasted S.
So that was annoying. Cap shield. I hate the Wakanda shields. They could have made a round shield for him.
Sure.
These are not really shields, they're just gauntlets. I mean, I guess they work as shields too, but they're just like fancy gauntlets. So I didn't
They're
love.
wrist protectors.
Yeah, it's just like it would have been better for me, I think, if he had a. It didn't have to look the same. It didn't have to be a round shield that defies physics. But
Yeah.
I think something better than that. Why does Tony carry around that flip phone?
To call Steve, because that's what was sent to him at the end of Civil War.
Yes, but why is he just carrying it around randomly?
Because they're not done.
He just always has it on him. He
Yeah.
just carries it around everywhere just in case. Like, what if Doctor Strange had never what if
Isn't that
Doctor
touching?
Strange had never shown up then and told him, like, we need your help because there's a real big problem? It's like,
He says, I mean, Cap's got that whole speech at the end of Civil War, like, if you need me, I'll be here.
right, but it wouldn't make sense. Like, if there were people in my life that if I needed them, I know they'd be there, that doesn't mean I'm going to carry around the only means to contact them. No, like, all he was doing was going for a walk in the park with Pepper.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same reason.
So he had it with him just because.
Same reason Nick Fury still has the beeper.
But
because we needed to develop the plot.
But no. The beeper is different because of the nature of his job. That makes more sense because he's encountering these crazy threats all the time now with Shield.
Tony.
But it's not
You
the
never
nature.
know.
It's not the nature of his job anymore. He just is. It just felt a little lazy. That's the point. It just felt a little lazy. Also, Tony's plan is dumb when they're going to Titan after they kill Ebony Maw, and he's like, I'm thinking that we should just meet him on his own turf, and he won't be expecting that, and we'll, kick his butt, and it'll be great. Look at the difficulty you had fighting his two servants, and you had more help. What makes you think that just you, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man are capable of fighting him?
It's true.
And they know that he has two stones. So you're planning on fighting the being that has two of the Infinity Stones with just the three of you, with no information, no point of reference on what Thanos is capable of. All you know is he's big, he's scary, he's got two Infinity Stones. Why do you think that the right move is to go meet him on his home turf without more people?
Because like he says to Peter, this is a one-way ticket. He knows he's not coming back. So I think the question was more, is he going to destroy Earth in the process, or can we just destroy another planet that I don't have loved ones on? I'm so good with the defense of this movie today.
No, not that doesn't. I still think
I might not change your mind, but I'm not making sense.
I guess it makes sense, but the most brilliant man on the planet is, that's just not well thought out.
Is emotional.
Yeah, everything can't be boiled down to they did this because they're emotional. Control your emotions better. You're a superhero. Another one is a weird writing thing. Why after the snap did everybody disappear at different times?
Loading issues.
Yeah, it's so that we, the audience, could connect with each of the characters that was disappearing, and I understand
so
that.
Each one got a moment. That's all.
But that just is dumb.
Yep.
That's dumb. Don't like it. It was just a silly thing. Also, very convenient that, Thanos said, the killing half the population was going to be random so that it's fair for rich and poor alike. Just very convenient that the people who survived are the 6 original Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
Just, that's nice that worked out, I guess.
Seems to work.
For me, the other issue is I hate when a movie ends on a cliffhanger. Like, you knew there was a part 2 coming, but I hate that it just ends unresolved, you know.
I love it.
I don't like that because to me it's incomplete. So it's hard for me to watch only that movie because it's an incomplete story. I'm not even saying that the good guys have to win, but
Sure.
that felt unresolved. It didn't feel like they lost, it's over. It felt like they lost until, you know?
Well, I think the way this works is that you have to sit in that emotion. Again, back to emotions, like, you don't get to wrap it up real quickly. And, in real time, we had to wait a year.
Yeah.
And I remember I remember being in the theater as the credits rolled. I literally said, "I'm not moving until Endgame comes out." I remember feeling it so viscerally,
Yeah.
and I think that's why this works. Like, yeah, I get that it's not a complete story. I'm fine with it being a chapter, in the same way I'm fine ending Two Towers or Empire Strikes Back, knowing that, yeah, it's a part of the narrative. There's more to tell. But this is its own chapter.
Yes, it's its own chapter, and that's not my issue. My issue is, when we do something like when we do something like this, or even when I hear other people talk about it, it's like, what did we think of this movie? It's hard for me to say fully what I think of this movie because this is an incomplete movie. If you asked me to just review as a movie something like Empire Strikes Back or Two Towers, there are good things that are about it and there are bad things that are about it, but always it's an incomplete story. So I'd rather tell you what I think of the whole story, the one complete movie of watching
Yeah,
all of them together, you know what I mean? But so that's always going to be an issue for me in those kinds of movies where they're episodic or chapters of a complete story when it doesn't have an ending.
fair enough.
So so that's not even really a bad thing. That's just a preference thing for me. I hate
Yeah,
cliffhangers, but that's all my bad. Not too much. Just some like we didn't really need two things.
totally. Let's dive into spiritual content, because this one had something really unique for me that I hadn't seen before. Over and over, particularly in this movie, but in all Avengers movies, the heroes don't do the hard thing. They don't. They fail all the time, and there's a particular reason, a very specific reason. It's because they refuse to sacrifice. It's literally the tagline of half of the movie. We don't trade lives. We won't do this thing. They will not sacrifice anyone they love, and up until this point, it's worked for them. Every movie gets a nice little bow at the end, and everybody's happy. Yeah, maybe you lost something, but Civil War is the prime example of we don't sacrifice people. And that's noble, and we love it, but it's actually incredibly selfish. And that actually, with that mentality, it actually makes Thanos the protagonist of this movie. He's not the antagonist, he's the protagonist. One of the reasons I think that he's such a brilliant villain is because he's willing to do what he believes must be done. And this movie makes us wince at that. It sort of makes us cringe at our own view of our own morality, that to have victory, somebody's got to lose. We just don't want it to be us. It asks us, are you willing to be perceived as a monster? Are you willing to lose? And that's a hard question. And yet, sacrificing a soul for a soul, trading lives, that's exactly what Jesus does for us.
Yeah.
And so then we put this back on us, right? Like, we want victory in our lives. We want victory over our addictions, over our relationships. We want it physically, spiritually, emotionally. But we always want someone else to pay that price. We don't want to pay for it. We don't want to lose. We don't want to sacrifice. And we want Jesus to do all the dying in our spiritual lives. And that brought to mind the passage in Matthew 16. It's verses 24 and 25. It says, "Then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. And what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his own soul? What shall a man give in return for his soul? And that verse, that thought really got me thinking that the Christian life is one of loss. It's one of sacrifice. It's one of being misunderstood for doing what you believe in. It's making hard decisions and being, misunderstood for Jesus, to follow Jesus. What we want to be is willing to follow him in all aspects, even if that's the death of our vision, the death of our goals, the death of some relationships, even our own expectations of what winning looks like. That's the invitation, that there's sacrifice involved and we have to be willing to make it because Jesus has done his part. And it's almost as though he's saying, all right, you're going to follow me. It's your turn.
I like that. That's really good. That's a really good way to think about how much sacrifice these characters end up giving. Is they lose everything, and
Yeah.
what are we willing to give up? Mine is not the same, but definitely has some connection for me. It made me think of, is failure a bad thing? Because at the end of this movie, our heroes have failed. Thor especially. You should have gone for the head. But none of these characters succeeded in what they set out to do. And for me, it boils down to I've never liked the phrase that says God doesn't give you more than you can handle. Well, if that were true, why would we need God? So failure is where God meets us. It's an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity for God to use his grace and love to restore us. Failure is an opportunity to learn from our mistakes and do better. Failure is important in our life. To fail means that you are moving forward. You're failing forward. In Proverbs 24, it says, for though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. So the point of failure is that it doesn't bring you down. That you learn from failure, you get up. Every time you fail, you continue to move forward. I think it's James that says when your faith is tested, it produces perseverance.
Yep.
Your faith being tested is failing. You're failing at something in your life, and it's very easy to let that defeat you. And it's perfectly normal and okay to sit in that for a minute and mourn it and feel emotional about it. But the point is, what do you do about it? Do you move on or do you move forward?
Yeah.
So I think that for me, the idea of failure being important is kind of what this movie tells me, what kind of growth is happening through these heroes' failure.
I love it. Do you want to rate this?
I do want to rate it. So you're going to be upset at my rating.
Probably.
This is not a flawless movie. It's a great movie. It's a culmination of 10 years of investment in these stories and these characters and loving every minute of watching their journeys. But it's got some story issues. For me, the cliffhanger nature of it is something that I hate dealing with. So for me, this is a bail. It's a good movie. I enjoy it. I will watch it many times in the future, but I can't say that it's flawless. I can't even say that it's great, partly because it's incomplete. So it's a bail for me.
I agree with everything you said, and I give it a Keaton. I still think it's great because of what they pulled off. It's not flawless, like you said, but it is unparalleled in its film and storytelling. Nothing has ever done this before. It is a turning point in the MCU. Like I've said, it's the MCU's Empire Strikes Back. which is my favorite film. It's great. It's got a lot of issues, and there's a lot of plot holes that you could fit, a couple Infinity Stones in, but it's great. It's a great movie. It gets a Keaton.
All right. I think a Keaton is perfectly fair. I think that anything below a Bale, you're wrong. So
Absolutely.
it's either got to be Bale or Keaton or Conroy. But I think Keaton and Bale, that's a good. I can't think of the word.
Rating?
I'm losing my words because all words are made up. No, not rating. It's a good promotion for it.
Totally.
It's a good word of confidence.
But that's a wrap on this episode. Remember, follow us on social media.
Please follow us on social media and check out our Facebook, our Instagram. Leave us a comment, a like, a subscribe even would be great so that you never miss an episode.
On there are exclusive memes and polls and... Wait. Why do I feel tingly?
All right, let's relax, Peter Parker. I don't know what your tingles are about, but it's not that.
I'm being serious. I think... Oh no. I'm dusting.
Are you joking me? You can't even make it through the rest of this episode?
Tell our followers I loved them.
This is unbelievable. I don't even know how. So I'm just supposed to finish this by myself?
I'll never let go, Jack.
Well, and just like Jack, I'm gonna let go. So remember, kids, never, ever embarrass yourself or anyone else in front of a wizard. So am I going to have to wait a whole year before we can do another episode?